Hi everyone, today we're going to be talking about the rock cycle. Here's an overview about what we're going to be talking about. First, we're going to start off with some definitions, then we're going to talk about the different rock types, and then put all those together in the rock cycle overall. First, we're going to go over some definitions that'll help you understand the rock cycle a little bit better. First, we're going to talk about magma. Magma comes from volcanoes. It's the liquid stuff that you see spew out of a volcano. It is formed by the melting of igneous and metamorphic rocks, which we'll talk about later in the next few slides. Next, we have weathering. Weathering is the breaking down of rocks, soils, and minerals through contact with Earth's atmosphere, water, and organisms. And it also goes along with our next definition, erosion. Erosion is the gradual destruction of something from wind, water, or other natural agents. These two go hand in hand with each other, meaning that they break down rocks, but some is gradual than others, but they have to do with the atmosphere and water. Next we have sediments, which sediments is the broken down rocks through weathering and erosion. So sediments are made from those weathering and erosion processes of breaking down of rocks. Next we have lithification, which is found in sedimentary rocks. Lithification turns sediments into rocks, so taking those little small rocks and making them into bigger rocks. Turning these sediments into rocks can be done in 3 different ways, which would be deposition, which means clasts are dropped or settled out, compaction, as more sediments accumulate above, clasts are forced closer together, and then cementation, which is groundwater moves between the grains and leaves behind mineral deposits, bonding the grains to each other. So all of those have to do with taking those sediments and then forming them into a sedimentary rock. Next we have metamorphism. Metamorphism is the change of minerals or geological texture in pre-existing rocks without melting into lava. This is driven by heat and pressure or chemically active fluid. So it's basically melting down, not melting down, it's basically taking the rocks into and breaking them down into without melting them into lava, so without the pressure from the lava, which is found in sedimentary rocks. Last, we have crystallization. Crystallization is the growth of crystals till they all form together. So taking the crystals and putting them into each other, when these crystals cool fast, they create small crystals because they don't have time to settle into one another, and then if they cool slowly, you get the larger crystals. Next, we're going to talk about the types of rocks. We're going to talk about igneous, sedimentary, and metamorphic rock. First, let's talk about igneous rock. Starting with the picture on the left, you see the igneous rock at the top, and all of the arrows pointing away and pointing towards it. Igneous rock can be formed by the cooling of magma, which we talked about earlier with the crystallization process. Igneous rock can also melt and it'll be turned into magma. And if an igneous rock goes through heat and pressure, as you see with the yellow line, it could be turned into a metamorphic rock. And also this igneous rock goes through weathering and erosion, which we talked about earlier. It could be formed into a sediment, which is those little small rocks. On the right, these are some examples of an igneous rock. We have rhyolite, andesite, and basalt, which is the main type of igneous rock. So that's the first step of your rock cycle. Next, we're going to talk about sedimentary rock. Sedimentary rock in this rock cycle is in that bottom corner. It can be produced by taking sediments and going through that lithification process that we talked about earlier with the compaction and cementation, which is turning those sediments into bigger rocks. Sedimentary rocks can also be broken down into sediments and can be broken down into a metamorphic rock. Making it a metamorphic rock, you'd have to go through heat and pressure. To make it into sediments, you'd have to go through weathering and erosion, which we talked about earlier also. On the right, you see these different examples of a sedimentary rock. You have the rock salt, the shale, the sandstone, limestone. The examples of like the rock salt and the limestone with their jagged features, that means they went through a fracture, which is minerals break down with a rough and jagged surface. And the other, like shale and sandstone, those have a cleavage, went down through like a cleavage process, which is minerals breaking down or splits apart with smooth surface. So you can see they have the nice smooth surface and not rocky like the rock salt. So that is the other part of your sedimentary rock for your rock cycle. Okay, so the last rock we're going to talk about is a metamorphic rock. The metamorphic rock on the left is that rock on the left side. This rock, you have to go through heat and pressure to be formed. So like you can take the igneous rock and the sedimentary rock and they can be formed into the metamorphic rock due to heat and pressure. So they have to be compacted down. This metamorphic rock can also be turned into magma by it melting, and due to weathering and erosion can be turned into sediments. On the right, you can see different types of metamorphic rock. You have the slate, the quartzite, a marble. A marble is a typical type of metamorphic rock that you normally see on a day-to-day basis. So this is the last rock that you need to complete your further understanding of the rock cycle. So here's your rock cycle in full, now that you understand each part that make up the rock cycle. On the left, you've seen broken down in all three of the rocks and what those definitions mean to break down each rock. On the right side is a simpler version of everything broken down of the rock cycle. If you started that igneous rock, you can see it moves to the sediments with the little rocks, then to the sedimentary rock, and then you can see that be broken down into a metamorphic rock, and that metamorphic rock can be turned into magma, which was the volcano. And then as you can see, it just keeps looping around, and that is how your rock cycle works. So here's your rock cycle in full, now that you understand each